Well, one perennial Super Bowl winner is the advertisers. An estimated 111 million people watch the game, so that means a lot of eyes on their ads. So joining me to talk about ad sales and the hits and misses from this year's crop of commercials is Sahil Jain, the co-founder and CEO of AdStage. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Rochelle, thanks for having me.
So for people who aren't familiar, just how important are these Super Bowl TV and online ads and social media, say, compared to a decade ago?
It's a really great question. I think we've started to see this huge shift in the TV and social advertising world in general. I think there's a few studies that came out that 87% of folks actually have a second screen or a second device while they're watching these different, games or sporting events or just television in general. And with that, you have folks that 64% or so are actually using social media while they're watching TV. And for all these different reasons, this year alone is really important for us because you're going to start to see digital advertising for the first time ever kind of eclipse television advertising, right? And I think, it's not doom and gloom for television advertising. In fact, it's the opposite. I think what we're starting to realize is that digital advertising, television, all of these different mediums are more effective when you use them together, when there's a holistic strategy in place. And so I think you started to see that yesterday with the Airbnb ad, where they really had a hashtag at the end of "we accept," because they knew those folks are going to be on their phones and they're going to be able to use that as well on Twitter, for example.
Right. Now, this is no small investment, though. Even for these 30-second Super Bowl ads, we saw that it's now hit $5 million this year. So with so many other ways to attract consumers, is it still worth the investment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I think Turner did a study that essentially, and there's quite a few studies out there that basically say, television ads, for example, will lead to larger social engagement, which basically means if you show a television ad, you'll start to have more engagement on things like Twitter or Facebook. And the name of the game here is really elevation across all fronts. And so while it is costly, that's why you always have the automakers, you have the, the alcohol folks, and you're starting to see some of the more well-funded tech companies, like you saw Google, of course, you saw Amazon, the two kind of artificial intelligence battlers, and you saw even newcomers like Airbnb. And I think that that's just a testament to this being alive and well, regardless of the price tag.
Now, Sahil, as you mentioned, big advertisers like auto and alcohol brands usually tend to take the lead. Those are really your staples. But what about surprises and perhaps hits and misses? What did you see this year?
It's a great question. I think, what was most fascinating to me wasn't just the different brands that were new, like surprising, like an Airbnb, an Amazon, a Google. The most fascinating thing to me was seeing how brands have this ability to basically, come together or bridge the gap between otherwise fragmented or divided audiences. And you saw for the first time, I think, in a really strong way, these brands using their voice and using their brand power to bring attention towards, things that are happening currently in the political climate or social change, and essentially just suggesting social awareness, and for us to just be in the know and hopefully not make it some, kind of transcend and have some sort of altruistic motive. Now, at the end of the day, these brands are still at the end looking for greater sales or greater purchases. But we learned from Coca-Cola a long time ago with the Share a Coke hashtag that there's some sort of altruistic behavior that you can marry with your business goals. And so I think you saw this with, Anheuser-Busch.
Right.
Everyone was talking about that. And I thought it was a very beautifully done. It was almost like a movie or a television show that we were watching on something like a Netflix. And they did a really, yeah, go ahead.
I do want to mention that even though, as you mentioned, the Super Bowl does enjoy this huge following in the US, but you also have the UK, Australia, Mexico, Canada. And for the first time, we even saw that the Super Bowl was live streamed on Weibo for Chinese audiences. So how does this growing global audience factor into how advertisers really strategize?
I mean, I think it's a wonderful question. I think it gets all the advertisers very excited, right? It's just more audience, more impressions, a very diverse set of impressions. I think that you have to keep in mind that while television may have its barriers from a language perspective or just in general from a broadcast time perspective, you have these different audiences being tapped into after the given broadcast. So right now, if you go on YouTube, for example, you can see if you type in Super Bowl ads, you'll see an ad from Airbnb, hoisted at the very top of the page. And so for these other audiences, the international audiences, you're going to start to see their local brands start to play in as well. I think you obviously saw a lot of American brands or American currently bred brands, and you're going to start to see them tap in. I wouldn't be surprised if you're starting to see other local brewing companies, say in Germany, this story, of course, with the founder of Anheuser-Busch being German, you're going to start to see them tap into that mainstream piece as well. And that's really fascinating to me.
Well, the game is certainly changing. Thank you so much. We'll have to leave it there. Sahil Jain, co-founder and CEO of AdStage.